Hello, welcome back to the Marni On The Move podcast, Boston Marathon Edition. We teamed up with Westin Hotels Resorts, Westin Seaport Boston, and Westin Copley Place to bring you this series of 6 conversations from the heart of the city and Marathon Central with Olympic, professional, elite, and recreational runners. First activation I dropped into was the Westin Shakeout Run. In 2023, Westin Hotels Resorts teamed up with Abbott World Marathon Majors to get travelers race ready from start to finish, championing race travelers and their supporters at the iconic series of the 6 most renowned marathons in the world. Throughout the weekend, every brand and run club has a shakeout, athlete talks, activations, and crowds overflow Newbury Street and Boylston Street. Dropped into Tracksmith to check out the scene and have brunch with the team. Walked over to Marathon Sports to the Hoka Fly Lab to pick up my Skyward X new running shoes, and it was packed. The running community really comes together in Boston this weekend from around the globe, and it's magical. Even if you're spectating, the energy is just so incredible. Here comes Sise Lema from Ethiopia. More of the men's pack following behind. Here comes CJ Albertson, another podcast guest, and Zach Panning. On episode 2 of the Marni On The Move Boston Marathon Edition, I sync up with Chris Heuisler, Westin Hotels Resorts Global Run Concierge, to dial into the RunWestin Program, where it began, Westin's partnership with Abbott World Marathon Majors, Westin's workout gear lending program with Hyperice and Bala, The Scream Tunnel is an experience you cannot miss if you're in Boston watching this iconic Boston Marathon. This is Wave 1 running through. From Wellesley, we jumped in the car and drove along the race course back into the city to head to the finish line. Feeling super inspired after spectating the marathon and filming all day, we went back to our hotel, the Westin Boston Seaport, where I laced up to go for a run in my new Hoka Skyward X shoes. On the run, I thought about my conversation with Chris and how one of his goals is to run a marathon in all 50 states with his older brother, and how he is 27 marathons into his plan. He shares a few of his favorites, which I kind of also want to run. Of course, I asked him what he loves about running. I thought about what I love about this sport, and how when I got back to my room, I was going to take advantage of the Westin workout offerings and their amazing Hyperice Go boots. Chris, it is so awesome to meet you today, to be here at the Westin. And thank you so much for hosting my podcast here all day and for this incredible opportunity to partner with you guys.
I think anytime we can find someone who's coming to the space that clearly knows what they're doing and be an early partner, we're all in for it.
Awesome. We're here in Boston for the Boston Marathon. It is marathon race weekend. There's lots of energy and excitement around this. And the Westin is immersed deeply in all of this. So talk to me about where RunWestin began, where this program started, and I know you were there in the early days.
Yeah, RunWestin began, I came into Westin in 2013. They did like some national search for a Run Concierge, but there's a misunderstanding that people think I was the original Run Concierge. I was not. The original Run Concierge was over at the Westin Seaport in Boston. His name's Paul Dwyer. He was the OG.
Okay.
And he and the GM were like, hey, this is going to be kind of cool if we had someone lead people for a run once or twice a week. And that found its way up into corporate. And then around the same time, they partnered with the Rock and Roll Marathon series.
Okay.
And it was that time when they're like, hey, we should probably hire someone to sort of bring the RunWestin partnership to life, like a face of this. And I don't think they knew what they wanted at the time. A bunch of people applied, and it worked. I think to your point, like there's a lot of runners in this world. It's the most participated sport in the world.
Yeah.
And Westin really wanted to go all in on being a hotel that understood runners and had their back, whether it was for a race weekend, a training weekend, and try to offer enough amenities to say we can help you maintain that routine on the road.
I mean, I have to say, as a runner and a triathlete, like that is like the reason for me to stay at a Westin, because when I travel, I like to explore cities through running and cycling. And as a woman especially, like I don't really want to go by myself in a new area that I don't know, or at least talk to someone about, you know, is it safe to run here, and where should I go, and do you have a map, or what's a good route, you know. I mean, of course there's Strava, but still, you know, there's, so I always feel like when I heard that you guys started this Run Concierge, like RunWestin program, it just made it so much more interesting for me as an athlete. Like, why wouldn't I just stay at a Westin anytime I traveled?
Appreciate that. And our Run Concierges are great. They're volunteers. They're not getting paid. People are not coming to Westin to get hired to be a Run Concierge. It could be the general manager of a hotel. It could be the bellman of a hotel. It could be a housekeeper. It's just people who love to run, just like us. And once or twice a week, they're going to lead a guest for a run, or, you know, the purpose is to just facilitate human interaction.
Yeah.
It's really lonely when you travel.
Yeah. And
maybe it's 6:30 in the morning on a Tuesday, and Nicole's in the lobby, or a Run Concierge, and you say, look, I don't like to run with people. And she says, that's okay, I can tell you where to go. That's still a win. Yeah. You know, like it's a local expert, not necessarily a running expert. Someone says, this might be a better route for you than that one.
Yeah. And I think, is this available at every Westin? No.
It's not, because we can't mandate that every Westin has a passionate volunteer, in essence. Right. So there's, I would say, at about 30 to 40% of our hotels there's a Run Concierge. But it is expanding. Like our partnership with Strava is going to help expand our idea that it's not just about running, it's about walking or biking. And our Westin Anaheim has someone who leads a walk twice a week.
That's great.
It has to be. We have to, I mean, people are post-pandemic, they just want to get outside differently. Yeah. And I think we're trying to really stay ahead of that, and we'll see what comes.
Well, this morning I had a really amazing experience at the Westin Seaport. I asked the concierge at the hotel, you know, where I should run. Of course, I saw a lot of people running, but I just wanted to get a good route. And I also saw the ocean from my window. And I had to run there. Like, you know, that's where I live in New York City, and I'm, you know, the water just grounds me. I know that sounds crazy, but it does. And so I got a map from the concierge, and they also told me a route to go, because I didn't organize anything. You know, I was supposed to run yesterday, and then we got in super late. Anyway, I had the best time. It was beautiful. It was so nice, the route that they gave me.
Out by the water?
Yeah. And then I soloed. Like I went, you know, I ran down Summer Street to D, and then I went around, but then I also went right and came back and went down, because I was in search of the ocean. Like I was on a mission. So, but I mean, it's so amazing.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
That's the purpose.
I mean, what if, like, are your guests, like, are you seeing like more and more guests are joining these running programs and coming here to run, but also from the community outside?
I'm getting more emails from guests ahead of their stay. Yeah. Saying, where should I go? Where's your running route? That didn't happen 3 years ago. So there's definitely, it's trickling. But like I said, about 50% of runners want to run by themselves.
Yeah, a lot of them do.
And we could have, you know, one of our Run Concierges is here at Copley. He's racing Boston on Monday. He's from Maui. Yeah. He's like our poster boy of a Run Concierge. He's going to get 10 to 15 runners every time he leads a run. It's Hawaii. People are there for leisure. They're not on some strict schedule for work. So they're like, oh, I'm going to go run with Brad. Yeah. Westin Pittsburgh, unbelievable Run Concierge and Amy. And it's just a different type of schedule. Like you're working with people like, I got to get this thing done. I don't have time for a 30-minute run with you. I'm going to do my own thing on a treadmill. Teach their own. So are the numbers shifting? I don't have that exact data. I just know that the expectation is shifting. That's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think also, like, you're a runner. I mean, have you seen there's like a whole new movement in running, like a whole new movement of runners just everywhere. I mean, I've never seen so many runners in New York City, and especially, obviously, it's marathon weekend here, but just in general on the West Side Highway.
I think it's post-pandemic. I think people experience some type of well-being for themselves because they had to get outside during the pandemic, and now that we're sort of getting back to normalcy, they don't want to give that up. I think it's very good for the sport. I also want to be conscientious of running is different to everybody.
Right.
And I think there is still a potential stigma of the word run, where people are like, I'm not a runner. And I'm like, well, didn't you have 4 runs this week? Yeah, but don't call me a runner.
Right.
Why not? What's that barrier to entry that makes somebody not want to identify as a runner? What are we doing as runners, who people do identify as a runner, that's not doing a good enough job of bringing them into the space? And I don't have those answers right now, but
I think a lot of it is like people who are new to the sport maybe, or who run once or twice a week, like think that to be a runner you have to do races or you have to be a pro athlete. But I'll take it. I'm a runner.
Yeah.
I run a few times a week.
Yeah.
I'll own it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's also like, do you want to identify? Like, I'm not a skier, right?
Yeah.
But I'm really not a skier. Like, I've skied like 3 times in my life. You know, like that would be okay. I agree with you. Maybe if you've only run 3 times. But I think anyone who's running once a week is a runner.
Preaching to a choir.
Yeah. What races do you have coming up?
I did the 5K this morning.
Okay, you
more
did.
Just to test. I had surgery on my ankle 2 years ago, and just kind of dabbling slowly back into the racing circuit. But my brother and I are trying to do one in every state. So we're 27 in, 1 marathon every state.
Okay.
And we're 27 in. It's been 5 years since our last one, which was Flying Pig in Cincinnati, which, plug for that. It's one of the greatest races in the U.S.
Cool.
So I don't know what's next.
So how did you decide to do that with your brother?
We did Philly in 2000, where we're from.
Okay.
And then we were like, that was kind of fun. And then he's my oldest brother, so I'm one of 5. And then I looked up to him. I was like, this could be like a way for us to do something every year. And it just became like a goal. And I think this is like pre-kids, pre-marriage. So I was like, this is already locked in. Like, you get that. And it's what a great way to travel and like with my brother and meet people.
And did your family travel with you too, or?
Our sisters sort of come into this a little bit. My wife and kids are now at an age where, like, the kids are like, I want to come to your next one. I'm like, really? Okay. But there is no next one currently.
Okay.
I just, like, we've talked about it. There's something pretty contagious about traveling somewhere for a race and seeing how the city embraces it, or how there's a feeling to every race. And I was just talking about this morning. It's just rare as we age that going into something you're not going to forget it.
Yeah.
That's rare, like to say tomorrow or Marathon Monday, I know that by the end of this I'm not going to forget what happened that day.
Yeah. That's
a privilege.
Yeah.
And marathons do that. And I think that's why they're contagious and why I want to get back into them.
I did one marathon in 2019 in New York, and it was so challenging. I've done like 15 70.3 triathlons, but it was just such a different experience. And when I ran through the finish line, I was like, I'm never doing another marathon again. And then I signed up for one like 2 days later. So it moved me, like their tagline, I'll say it, but seriously, it did. Like, watching the race every year, I couldn't watch it anymore. I had to do it.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
I wanted to do it. I mean, I was already running, but the same thing with Boston. Like, there's just so much magic around these races and around the experiences that you come away with, like whatever your experience is.
Whatever your experience is.
Yeah.
And that's I used to ask a runner, if I was coaching them, what's your goal? And that's not my opening question anymore. My question is, what's the story that you want to tell?
Right.
Because the first question anybody's going to ask you is, how did it go?
Right.
They're not going to say, did you get your time? They're not going to ask you what your time is. Did you hit your goal? They're just going to say, how'd it go? Well, that's open-ended right there.
Right.
And you can say everything you want about high-fiving volunteers, stopping to hug your spouse, drinking a beer with the kids at Boston College. You can say all those things and not even mention what your finishing time was. And I think that's pretty important to keep in mind, that you're creating these lifelong memories and experiences when you do a marathon. That's really cool.
It is. And it's and that language and that conversation, like this conversation that we're having, like, it didn't exist 5 years ago. Right? Like, it was a very different vibe around running. Like, it was all about time and it was about your PR. But now it's like such a broader market, which makes sense that the Westin would also be kind of reaching across all of these platforms, in terms of like running, because there's a wider audience too.
Yeah, maybe that's it, actually. You said, why are there more people doing it? Maybe that's it. When we did our first race in 2000, I was in college, and my friends were like, "What are you doing? Like, you're doing what?" I was like, "The Philly Marathon. Like, isn't that like 20 miles or something? Like, it's 26. Like, that's stupid. Like, like, how long is it going to take you?" And I was like, "Well, this is my goal." And like, I can't even understand why you'd go run for 3.5 hours. Like, and in the year 2000 was a bit. It wasn't in that.
It was the beginning.
Kind of.
It was the beginning
of
like.
Was.
It was first. It was in the 70s. Then it was 2000. Like in the late 90s. And I remember I was working with Mile High Run Club in New York City, and when they first opened, and then that was that time. I think.
Yeah. So I really do like seeing more people come into the sport, and I hope that we embrace them the way that they should be embraced.
Well, you must be pretty psyched that the Westin now is in a partnership with Abbott World Majors.
Mm-hmm. It was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I think, again, what they're doing to really globalize the sport and encourage people to go travel extensively, to go run 26.2 as part of your ideally week-long experience. Yeah, we want to be your partner for that, absolutely. There's so much about it that's admirable, and we identify as a brand that really sees people who are inspired and they want to achieve big things. Like, that's kind of who that's who likes to stay at our hotels. It was a perfect partnership.
That like part 2 of Run Westin, where you saw a lot of people coming to the hotel that were runners that wanted to stay at the hotel, and then you kind of like, and then you thought, we should do this. Yeah,
we had rock and roll partnership for about 5-ish years, paused, and then again post-pandemic was like, this is like the next step up. I don't know what the analogy is like.
I know, I was trying to think of something.
Is it minor league baseball to the majors? Is it something like that? We're like, this is a great way. And with our gear lending partnership with Hyperice, you see them everywhere now. This leaning into recovery. There's a thread here.
So since we mentioned the gear lending program, talk to me about the WestinWORKOUT gear lending program as well. Yeah,
so you can check into our hotel and get a recovery kit sent to your room for $5, and it comes with the Hyperice, the gun, the calf sleeves. You can get the balas, stretch bands, because people like to work out in their room now.
Right.
Again, we're trying to understand, what do people not have when they travel, that they wish they had. Well, here, this is a great solve, and travel beats your body up. If you're sitting on a plane or in a car or a train for 6 to 8 hours, you really can benefit from something like a Hyperice.
Do you have any hydration partners yet?
But you're right. We have something new that's going to start coming to our lobbies called the Well.
Okay.
Where it is basically a hydration station. You'll see that in our gyms, because you hit the nail on the head, that hydration is so key to your wellness on the road.
Yeah, traveling, flying, all of those things. And speaking of wellness, I mean, the Westin is at the epicenter of wellness in the hospitality and travel space. So talk to me a little bit more about how you've gained your reputation in this space as a global leader.
I think it began in 1999 with the launch of the Heavenly Bed.
Okay.
I really do. I know it sounds so silly that you expect a good bed when you travel.
Right.
But the Heavenly Bed became this thing, like the best bed in hospitality. And when you think of wellness, if you don't get a good night's sleep, you can kiss all your other dreams goodbye. Like,
so you were a pioneer in that too?
I was not, but somebody was.
Right. Westin was a pioneer in 100%. Thinking ahead of the curve with the sleep.
Yeah, let's make sure our people are sleeping as best they possibly can.
Yeah.
And I think that really was the first dabble into understanding what it means to take care of yourself when you travel. And then that led to, well, what are the other pillars of wellness? If sleep well is like number one, what are the other ones? How do people like to move well? They like to eat well. They like to feel well. And like that became this sort of the DNA of our brand. And in a way, we were ahead of our time, I think. I think we do really want to put our flag in the ground as we are the best hotel for wellness in hospitality. That said, we've got a lot of people creeping into the space, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, I do think that more hotels can do better by their guests when they travel, and imitation is a form of flattery. So the other companies that are brands that are coming in, let's go. Like, we need to stay ahead of the curve, though, and I think we will.
Awesome. And is there anything that we should be looking forward to? Any new things that you're announcing in coming year in 2024 or 2025?
So we have the Strava partnership, which is really exciting. So every hotel will have a Westin workout route that's curated by the hotel. It could be a run, it could be a hike, it could be a walk, but it's this is the best route we suggest you do from our hotel. It's a great partnership. We do have some other things, but I've been told by our team I can't tell you what they are.
All right, well, you'll have to come back on and talk about it.
I'd be happy to.
And let's just like go back into running. So have you done the 6 majors?
No, I've done New York, Boston, and Chicago.
Are you going to do Tokyo?
I don't know. I want to get the States done.
Okay. That's your
really
priority.
I really do. Yeah. Like I respect the majors, and if the opportunity were there, I'm not going to say no to it.
Right.
But I want to see what's in the U.S. Like the U.S. has a lot of really good races in it. You know?
Yeah. So 27. So were there any that you like were your favorites? That
Flying Pig. I'm telling
Pig.
you, if you like that could very well be a major. It's that good.
Oh, really?
They did not miss a single detail. And I've told the race director this. I've spit this out to people ad nauseum because they just didn't miss.
Okay. Is there a Westin near there?
There is. I stayed there. I mean, I'm talking when I got off the plane and I walked through baggage claim, there's a pig there, a pig mascot, giving me a balloon. I'm like, whoa! And then driving to my hotel, there's flags, Flying Pig, and the expo, you get a custom poster for that year, which is just kind of
That's cool. That's very cool.
The corrals are called styes. There's barbecues everywhere during the course. Like the town came out big time.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and there's just a feeling of camaraderie and community that has the small local town feel, like a Grandma's Marathon.
That was my next question.
Okay.
Have you done that?
I've done Grandma's.
Okay.
It was like a little bit like Grandma's on steroids, which I know saying anything on steroids right now is not good to say in running. I accept that, but Flying Pig really was just like, with all due respect to Grandma's, which is great.
Yeah.
I would definitely put that on the bucket list. Flying Pig was just one notch.
In Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So I'm really into, like, everyone is like, oh, do you want to do the majors? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I want to do Boston. I'd love to do Tokyo. But I'm really into doing marathons that are, like, more edgy or, like, not mainstream.
Yeah, me
like,
too,
that's my kind of vibe.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, oh,
we did one in Delaware, and the medal was a wooden turtle. And I'm like, what is this? The pasta the night before had, like, 20 people in it. Like, this is cool.
I mean, that's like Barclays.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was a great call. It just felt grittier.
Yeah.
And then we did Vegas before it was the Rock and Roll Vegas.
Right.
And they just shipped you out on a bus 26 miles out. Like, we didn't run the strip. We ran like in a sandstorm the whole time.
Oh my God.
But
that sounds awesome.
But now we have a story to tell.
Yeah.
You know, but
I like the story.
Yeah, Memphis, New Orleans, like Fort Collins in Colorado. We've done some really cool ones that, why not? You know, Jackson, Mississippi.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna have to like hit you up off the podcast.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think you know, doing these things as part of travel and exploring is always awesome. What do you love the most about running?
Some of our team here. So the Westin team obviously is here. There's marketing, there's PR, and some of them currently do not run, and they're like, I hate running. I don't get it. Like, all right. I mean, I'd question this one to you too. So when you're in the act of running, do you like it?
Depends on the day.
Me too.
This morning, I loved it because I have not run in 5 days, and I am grateful that I had like time to do that.
But when you're training for a triathlon and you're on your 5th day of that week, you're just kind of grinding it out.
Totally.
It's not glamorous. It's a grind.
Yeah.
So you're basically doing the workout to get home.
Yeah.
But when you get home, you feel like $1 million.
Yeah.
Like you're like playing with like house money for the rest of the day.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's kind of why I like to run.
Yeah.
Because I do feel like the endorphins that I get afterwards make the rest of the day just feel like, all right, I feel like I already conquered my day a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think one of the reasons I run now, sometimes it's to just I need a break, I need to get out of my house, or I need to see a new city. But the majority of my runs is for the effect I get afterwards.
Yeah, I get that. That's awesome.
I guess I know it because I'm all about trying to stay in the present too, and I try to do that when I'm running. But I'm also like, this is hard. You know, I'm just like pounding the pavement right now. If I'm in the trails, I don't get that as much. But if it's like pounding cement, I just want to get home.
And you mentioned you're coaching people. Or you also?
I coach like 2 or 3 people a year, just pro bono. I like their stories.
Yeah.
But once I coach someone, if they ever came back, I'm like, of course. Like if they pick a new race, there's like a group of like 10 of them.
All right.
And I love them. They're the best, and they fill my bucket, and they all get their own nickname. That's pretty important. Yeah, it keeps me fresh.
What is like the biggest lesson, I mean, from running that you take into your career and like day-to-day life?
I've learned that running should never define me, but it can always refine me.
Ooh, I love that.
I've learned that it ebbs and flows, that there's no should in running anymore. So whatever my 5K was, it wasn't like I should have gone faster. It is what it is. I really hate the word should as a runner.
Okay.
Gratitude is huge. Humility is huge. Ego has no place in running, which is hard to do with a watch on our hand, on our wrist. A lot of this came from Meb. He's a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
I haven't shared some miles with him. He's taught me a lot. He's like my Mr. Miyagi of running.
Oh, I love that.
But everybody has a story. And I think I owe it to anybody I'm coaching to listen to that story. And I think I need to call myself out too, though. Like even this morning at the 5K, I put earbuds on. And in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have. Like, there's people out there cheering for me. And I got music blasting. That's not really fair. That's not cool to the spectators. So live and learn.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Chris, this has been so
Yeah,
awesome.
thanks for having me,
Thank
Marni.
you.